All right, guys, we're talking about militarism, what you need to go to war. And this is one of the causes of World War One. Now, militarism doesn't sound like a real word, but it is for what we're talking about. And let's get into what militarism is. What do you need to go to war? Guns. You gotta have guns. You need guns, you need big guns, you need small guns. You need guns that go pow pow, you need guns that go boom boom. And here are some different guns from World War One. You should recognize them. You've got the M4A1 Garand. I'm sorry, the MA1 Garand on the bottom left corner. It's right here. And you've got the German machine gun right here. And then on the bottom here, you have what they called the Lewis gun. This came in at the end of the war. Now, the German machine gun forced air down the cylinder to cool their barrels, where the Lewis gun encased theirs in water to cool their barrels. All right, so if you have guns, you need something to go with guns. Well, that's right, you've got to have bullets. And bullets are cool because they come in all different shapes and sizes. And these are what the different guns fired. These over here are howitzer rounds that the Germans fired at the British. Big cannons that didn't fire straight, they fired up and then landed on top of the English and the Russian and later the Americans. And French. Sorry, forgot them. Now, bullets are great. They win you wars. If they get enough of them into the enemy will quit and you win. But guns and bullets aren't the only thing you need. What else do you need? Band-aids. Because if you get hit, you want to stop the bleeding. You want to not let your soldiers die. And so you need bandages. So you're going to have bandages when you go to war. And this is a World War One bandage. This would be something they'd wrap around the arm. They did have a gauze-like structure as well, but this was a burlap part they would tie around a wound and tie it off to stop blood flow and do surgery on the wound if they could. And you need vehicles, right? You got to have ways to move your troops because if they walk everywhere, they will be tired and they won't want to fight. So you see the bottom left corner, those are troop transports. They could probably take about 6 guys, so you had to have a whole fleet of them to move an army. On the top, you have one of the first tanks built by a car. And on the bottom right, you have one of the middle German tanks. They didn't have the treads yet because they weren't going over the trenches yet. But wait, not only do you have to have tanks and cars, but you have to have ships. That's right. This is also a Navy battle. So you've got to have ships with great armor and big old guns on them. And if they sink, you better have more ships. And these are all steam-powered ships. Remember the Industrial Revolution. They got steam. They don't have nuclear power yet. They don't have much in the way of electricity power. They have to generate the electricity, and they had to do that with coal. And wait a second. I hear what you're saying. If you're going to have vehicles, you've got to have fuel. That's right. They had to make sure they had enough gas and coal. And these are pieces of artwork now, but they were, oh man, I just forgot the word. I'll think of it after the video is over. But these are, almost said it. All right. If I remember it, I'll come back and put it in there. But they would put these out for people to see. To tell them, hey, save your coal, save your fuel to make battle. And this first one, the daughters who heaped on the coal, save fuel to make munitions for battle. Courage alone is not enough. They must be kept warm this winter. This country needs more coal now. Keep on saving coal, gas, electricity, and paraffin. Paraffin was a type of wax, and it was used on the vehicles to keep their wheels turning as like greasing. And these were all pieces of artwork, which I'm still drawing a blank on the name. I'm going to leave a pause here, so if I remember it, I'll come back and put it in. Okay, hopefully that pause is long enough because it is not coming to me. Oh, I can't believe that. I hate that when this happens. Anyway, so they had these pieces out, and oh man, it's really bugging me. Anyway, so they had these pieces out, and this was out to remind people to save their energy so that they could send it over to the soldiers. All right, and if you get fuel, that leads us to armaments. The word armaments. And armaments means the things you need to go to war. So this graph is what we want to focus in on because this is the growth in armaments from 1890 to 1914. So in 1819, we can see from our legend up here that G stands for Germany, A and H is Austria-Hungary, I is Italy, GB is Great Britain, R is Russia, and F is France. And everyone's under 40. And this is expenditures in millions in euro. So this has actually been changed all the way down to euro because, or British pounds, I should say. I apologize, British pounds. That way we don't have to worry about the German franc or the France dollar or the Austrian Hungarian mark. I'm sorry, it's the German mark, the France franc, and now it's the Hungarian dollar, I think. I don't know. I just went blank on that too. It's a bad day for me. But anyway, they also show us that the orange is Army and the light blue is Navy. And right here we have, oh, don't want that to pop up. Go away. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so right here under 1890, starts off with Germany. They're a little over 20 million pounds, and their army takes up the most of their money. Their navy is probably less than 5 million. Austria-Hungary is in last place. They look like they're about 10 million euros in on their army and maybe a million in navy. Italy comes in second to last. They've got a little bit more maybe of an army than Austria-Hungary, but they do have a bigger navy. And that makes sense because Austria-Hungary borders the Mediterranean. Italy sticks out into the middle of the Mediterranean, and they're more susceptible to being attacked on three different sides. Follow that with Great Britain. They're in second place. They almost spend 20 million in their army, but they do spend almost the same, probably a little less, around 17 to 16 million on their navy. And that makes sense because England is an island. Great Britain was an island. Russia comes in third or tied with Germany. And again, most of their military is in their army. They look like they have maybe just a slight bit more navy than Germany. And Germany is landlocked, so that kind of makes sense. Well, Germany wasn't landlocked at this point, but it didn't have much in the way of a coastal area. And then France comes in first. Yeah, the great Franz. They spend as much on their army as Russia does, just a little bit under what Russia spends and Germany on just their army. And then they spend a little bit more on their navy. So they're around 24 million for their army and probably another 6 or 7 million, maybe even 10 million on their navy. And that's in 1890. Now we move forward a decade. Remember, a decade is 10 years. So in one decade, things look to have changed a lot for at least 4 of the 6. Germany has ramped up to over 40 million pounds, and their army taken the biggest hit. They put up about 38 million in their army. They went from about 24 to 38 million, and their navy looks like it doubled in size to get them just over the 40 million euro mark. Austria-Hungary looks like they didn't do much, maybe got a little bigger army, a little bit bigger navy. That's about it. Italy, they're about the same. Again, they probably just kept what was going on. Great Britain, however, apologies for that. Great Britain decides to mega jump, and they go over 20 million in their 20 million pounds in their army, and they not only significantly increase their navy, they double their army expenditure in just their navy, which puts them in the 50 million pound mark for their military. Russia has grown as well. They've got a bigger navy, but they've got a much, I won't say much bigger, but they have a bigger army. They're over 40 million pounds. And France has gone up a little bit, but they're not the head dog anymore. They're now over 40 million. They're bigger than Russia, smaller than Great Britain, and a little bit bigger in Germany. And they're around the 43 to 44 million, with their navy being second best, which is normal because you want to have a big army. 1910, a decade later, Germany goes through the roof. They're over 60 million euros. Oh, sorry, not euros, pounds into their military. And their army and navy is almost the same. So their army takes about 37 million, which is about what it was 10 years ago, but their navy has tripled in size. Austria-Hungary must be sensing something because they've gone up almost to 19 million. Italy's sensing something. They're over 20 million for the first time. They're at around 23 million. Great Britain, they didn't let the last 10 years stop them. They've even increased their navy more. Their military increased, their army increased a little bit, but their navy doubled in size again, and they're almost to the 80 million pounds. It's probably around 78 million. Russia felt some pressure, and they boosted their army way. They got the biggest army boost there so far, all the way up to 57 million, and their navy pushes them over the 60 million, probably in the 62, 63. France, they got a little bit bigger army. They kept their navy the same size. So they're gearing up for something. Everybody's gearing up for something. 4 years later, look where we're at. So Germany started out, was it 24 years ago, in third place. 10 years later, they're still in third place. 10 years later, they're in third place. They beat France out. But 4 years later, they're up to 115 million pounds. Their army is well over 85 million pounds. Their navy is just under 15 million pounds. And they've left everyone in the dust. Austria-Hungary has almost reached 40. They almost doubled the size of their military. Well, they did. They did double the size of their military. Italy got a little bit stronger navy. That was it. Great Britain stayed the same from 4 years ago. But Russia must have felt it because they grew their army again and their navy. They're over 80 million pounds. And France stayed the same. So Germany must have saw something in those 4 years that gave them the reason. And growth in armaments equals militarism. You don't build warfare stuff unless you have a reason to use it. And that's what you're seeing right here. The growth in their armaments means they're probably going to need them. And in 24 years, Great Britain went from that. Remember they talked about that in the rough draft, or sorry, the background about how they all wanted balance of power. In 24 years, they lost their balance of power. All right, what do you think that means? Well, that's for you to find out. Go ahead and make your inferences and finish your quiz.